Hi, this is Sue Jackson, and I'm here today with a tag video. This is one I've really been looking forward to. It's the Childhood Books tag, and it was created by Fantastic Magical, and I was tagged by Marlicia's Musings, or Marlicia's Meanderings. She goes by both names. And I was so happy to get back from our long trip this summer and see that Marlicia had tagged me in this one, because I just caught one or two of these videos before we left at the beginning of July. And I knew right away I really wanted to do this. And I think you'll see why. So this is all about childhood books and our reading habits as kids. So question 1, were you a big reader as a child? Well, I think I can answer that question with a single photo. Yes, so that is me on my potty chair with the Cat in the Hat, reading very intensely. My mom said I spent like hours there with a stack of books next to me. So yes, right from the get-go, I was a big reader. I loved books. Question 2, did your parents read to you? If so, what? So yeah, here my memory gets a little fuzzy, which is unusual for me. From the time I was 1 until I was 4, my mom and I lived with my grandparents and my aunt and uncle, who were very young. They were just 9 and 10 when I was born. So I'll just say it, I was spoiled. They adored me. I was a little kid in this big family household, and I got a lot of attention. And I am sure that not just my parents, my mom and dad married when I was 4 years old, but my aunt and uncle and my grandparents, I'm sure they all read to me when I was a kid. I don't remember a whole lot of that. Yeah, those memories come up more when I was a little older. But I know they did, because question 3, first bookish memory, is learning to read using Go Dog Go by P.D. Eastman, a classic and still a favorite of mine. This is not my original copy. My sister was 6 years younger than me, so she got all of my picture book hand-me-downs. But this is a copy we got for our sons because I loved this book and it held such a special place in my heart. My mom taught me to read using this book when I was only 4 years old, before I started kindergarten. And like I said, I was off after that. So this book holds a special place in my heart. And I would say it's my first real book-related memory, is sitting with my mom and reading this. Question 4, be honest. Did you read books assigned to you in school? Yes, all of them. Every word, every page. Yeah, I was one of those nerds in school, all the way through high school, who read every assigned book. Loved the class discussions. Is it any wonder I'm on Booktube now talking about books? Yeah, I loved book groups before I knew what they were. I always read the assigned books. It's been interesting because recently, in the last few years, I've reread some of the books that I read in junior high or high school that I remembered enjoying but didn't remember much about. And I still love them. And I remember like every book we read every year from 7th grade to 12th grade. And I still have most of them on my shelves. 2 years ago for Big Book Summer, I reread The Grapes of Wrath. We had read that in 10th grade English with Mr. McKenna. Oh, an amazing English teacher, one of many. And I remembered enjoying the book. I knew it was about the Dust Bowl. Well, I remembered nothing else about it. So I was thrilled when I reread it a few summers ago. I absolutely loved it, and it was an amazing book. Same with Great Expectations. We read a lot of Dickens when I was in high school. There are other authors that we didn't get any of. I've never read a Hemingway book, but Dickens we read a lot of. And in ninth grade, we read Great Expectations. And then maybe, I don't know, it's probably between 5 and 10 years ago, I listened to it on audio for Big Book Summer, and I was blown away. I remembered liking it in high school, but I just loved it the second time around. There's so much wit in it, and that surprised me. I hadn't remembered that. So yes, I read every book assigned. I enjoyed reading every assigned book. So yeah, I still have a whole bunch of the books that I read in junior high and high school. Some of them a little worse for the wear. The Bridge of San Luis Rey, I've been meaning to reread that one. And yeah, you can see there's doodling in these. Many of them have my notes and underlinings in them from school. Wuthering Heights. Current boyfriend. That must have been 10th grade. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest we read in AP English in 12th grade. Loved it. Great discussion. The Catcher in the Rye, of course. Although this and several of my books here are actually my mom's old copies. She was an English major in school. The Heart of Darkness, I remembered liking it in high school. It's another one I reread maybe 10 years ago and still excellent. I've been meaning to reread this one. Like I said, we read a lot of Dickens. A Tale of Two Cities. Haven't read this in a long time. Yeah, it's in rough shape. Although I think my husband read it a few years ago. Ninth grade was 1984 by George Orwell. Again, lots of notes in there. Now, I did have to slack off a bit in college, which I hated doing. I liked reading and wanted to read, but freshman year in college, I had a bunch of AP credits, so I dove right into all the engineering curriculum. So lots of science and math classes, and the required freshman lit class, which you couldn't credit out of, which is probably a good idea. But our freshman lit teacher, our professor assigned like a dozen books, and one of them was the Bible. We were assigned to read the entire Old Testament. So between all my other classes and all those books freshman year, and okay, yeah, a fair amount of partying on the weekends, I had to back off a bit. So to this day, I have never read Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe, though I wrote a paper on it and got an A. Stayed up all night doing it too. Distinctly remember that. So I'm going to get to this one. Okay, so that was school. Let's see. Question 5. Where did you get your books as a child? I think a lot of gifts from my family. I also, besides that close family, I had an adoring, bigger extended family of great aunts and great uncles and second cousins. And yeah, so I got doted on. I got a lot of books that way. For the ones I owned, went to the library a lot too. I can remember going to the library with my mom early on, my picture book years, and then later I can remember going, well, I worked in our school library for a few years, and I can remember going to our town library as a teenager. I, was slowly discovering adult books. I read every Ray Bradbury book they had. I read every Agatha Christie book that they had. So I have good memories of that too. Lots of library memories. Question 6. Did you watch any television meant to inspire reading? I'm so glad you asked. Again, wonderful memories. So I was born in 1965. Sesame Street premiered in 1969. I was 4 years old, the perfect age for it. I was the first Sesame Street generation. So loved Sesame Street, but I also loved the show that came on after Sesame Street, The Electric Company, which was completely focused on reading. I mean, Sesame Street was aimed at a younger audience, you know, like recognizing letters and numbers and things like that. Electric Company was all about reading, and it was so fun. And it is such a 70s show. You have to go back and look at some clips from The Electric Company because it starred Rita Moreno, Morgan Freeman as Easy Reader. I'll show you either a picture or a clip, whatever I can find. Yeah, so I loved the Electric Company. It began with one of the cast shouting, "Hey, you guys!" It was just really, really fun. I've got the DVDs because when I was writing reviews for Family Fun magazine in the 90s and the 2000s, they came out with a DVD collection of all of the Electric Company episodes. And so I said to my editor, "Can I review this?" And she gave me the okay. So I introduced my kids to it, although they were a little old for it by then. They still got a kick out of seeing Morgan Freeman as this groovy guy with a big afro. Yeah, loved the Electric Company. And then after the Electric Company was Zoom. And I don't know if any of my reading buddies out there who are about my age remember Zoom, but loved Zoom. Not so much about reading, more just about kids and kids' lives, but loved that one as well. I can still recite their address because they sang it. Come on, if you were born in the 60s, I'm sure you can too. Right, Zoom, ZOOM, box 350. Boston, Mass. 02134. Send it to Zoom. It was like a dream of mine as a kid to be featured on Zoom. Never happened. Question 7. What sort of genres or storylines did you like? As a kid, I read everything. I read all kinds of stuff. Mysteries. As a child, and I'll talk about this more in another question, this is when I first discovered how much I enjoyed science fiction, realistic fiction, all kinds of stuff. Oh, going back to question 2 about being read to, one thing that had an enormous impact on my life was being read to by some of my teachers, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Question 8. Favorite children's or picture book? So again, I don't remember a lot of my own picture books. I remember my sister's really well because I was reading them to her. But certainly I remember Go Dog Go and another great P.D. Eastman book, The Best Nest. Love this book. And again, all of these are not my original ones from childhood, but they're ones that I bought for my kids because I had such great memories of them. In the same group, Put Me in the Zoo by Robert Lopshire. Fabulous book. And my kids loved it just as much as I did. And of course, I loved Dr. Seuss. You saw that I had a copy of The Cat in the Hat, reading it on my potty chair. I remember Green Eggs and Ham. These are just some of the ones that I think I had as a kid because I remember them pretty well. One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. And these are all my son's copies. The Sneetches and Other Stories. This was one of my favorites. I do remember this really well. A book that I had to look up before I started this. Another Dr. Seuss book. We don't have it now, but McGillicuddy's Pool. And it was about a kid sitting by this pool. I think he was fishing. And all the different things he saw during the day. Another Dr. Seuss book, a lesser known one, I think. I also remember liking Curious George a lot. Now, this is a newer one of my sons, but yeah. Okay, question 9, favorite chapter or big kids books? So many. So I mentioned the impact of my teachers reading to me. In particular, my second grade teacher, Mrs. Holshoe, at the end of every day, while we were waiting for the buses, we'd sit on the floor around her and she would read a book to us. The first one she read to us was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Oh, I forgot to get those out. We've got the whole set that we bought for our sons and read with our sons. She read that out loud to us, and that lit a fire under me. And I ran to the library the next day, and once we finished the first book, and I read the whole series from our school library. That's the other place I got books, was the school library, especially in elementary school. Oh yeah, the other picture book I remember is my friend Barb and I were really into the Ant and Bee series. Don't know if you've ever remember that, but so her reading that to us. I'm trying to think, what else did she read to us? She might have been the first one who read Pippi Longstocking. This somebody gave me as a gift, and it was one of my favorites. I read it many times. Paddington, loved the Paddington stories, and had a whole bunch of these. This was actually mine. Again, going back to school, my third grade teacher, Miss Tubbs, had us read as a class A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. I loved this book. I mean, it blew me away. And it's another one, and I think I actually asked for the rest of the series for my birthday or something, because I've got more in the series. Read the whole thing, loved everyone. And then our class did a play of A Wrinkle in Time, and I got cast as Meg. It was like a dream come true. So I have read this book so many times over the years, still love it. Read it to my sons, although I was so anxious to share it with them. I read it to my older son a little too early. I think he was only like in kindergarten or first grade, and he found it a little scary. I should have been patient. But later, I think his class read it, and when he read it on his own, he enjoyed it. So I didn't completely mess that up. Katie John is one of my favorite books, and I don't often hear people talk about this, by Mary Calhoun, about a little girl who moves to a new house, and the summer she spends in this town where she doesn't know anyone. Somebody gave this to me as a birthday gift, The Once and Future King, actually a boxed set. There's 2 others in the series. Now, these days I don't read a lot of fantasy, but I loved this book, really loved it. And then the other place I got books from that I forgot to mention was my mom, especially when we were living at my grandparents' house. So I was really young then. I think probably as an older child, I mean, we were over there all the time. We visited a lot. I probably went through the basement cupboards and found some of these. But some of my mom's old books that I loved, The 5 Little Peppers and How They Grew. Who is the author of that? I don't even know. Margaret Sidney. My mom had a bunch of Ginny Gordon books, Ginny Gordon in the Lending Library. I think those were mysteries. Interesting that they didn't put the author's name on the cover back then. So I still have a bunch of these upstairs that were my mom's. And finally, question 10, favorite children's series. So I saved some for this. Well, the first series I got into, like many of us, was the Bobbsey Twins. I don't have any of those anymore. But of course, that was followed by the Nancy Drew books. And these are what my books looked like. My mom gave this to me along with some other antique Nancy Drews from even earlier as a gift. I don't have any of my Bobbsey Twins or Nancy Drews anymore. I had 3 younger girl cousins, quite a bit younger than me. And when the oldest told me she liked reading Nancy Drew and the Bobbsey Twins, I gave them my whole set. So, and there were 3 of them, so they worked their way through their house, I'm sure. But these These are what mine looked like back then. The Bobbsey twins were like this, but blue. Like most kids of that time, I really got into Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. The other mystery series that I loved, maybe even more than Nancy Drew. And I was disappointed when I was preparing for this video to find out that I don't have any anymore, was Trixie Belden. Loved Trixie Belden. Also mysteries. She and her brother and her best friend and some other kids were part of a club that they called the Bob Whites, and after the bird, and they solved mysteries. And my neighborhood friend and I would like pretend to be Trixie and her best friend Honey. We never found any good mysteries though in our quiet suburb for some reason. Oh, and for series, of course, the Narnia series, like I said, the Wrinkle in Time series. So yes, I loved books as a child. And I completely forgot. I put this together really fast because my husband just left for golf and I was trying to squeeze in a recording session. So I forgot to write down who to tag. So let me see. I'd like to choose some people that I think are about my age and can relate to the same things that I can, because I'd love to hear their answers. So let me say Book Chat with Pat, Laurie of Books, Ink, and Paper, Melinda at A Web of Stories. She's a little younger than me, but I think I'm curious to hear what she read as a child too. And Tracy of Tracy's Nordic Light, I think is the name of her channel. I'll include it all down below. So I'm tagging those people. Hopefully I'll remember to write that down. But please feel free to do this tag yourself if you have a channel. And I would love to hear from you. What were some of your favorite childhood books? Let me know in the comments down below. I love this topic.